Ezekiel is a fascinating book in that it is prophetic, and it just does not speak to the moment Israel was in, but when God begins to talk through the prophet Ezekiel, he talks about what is in the past, what is happening right now, and what is going to happen. By the time Ezekiel begins to write, Israel had been carried away into captivity a few times, and God begins to speak through the prophet Ezekiel. One of the most powerful passages we have, I believe it's about Ezekiel chapter 38. Nash? Ezekiel chapter 38? Dry bones? 37, thank you. 37, when he talks about, thank you, Nash. Talks about the dry bones and talks about how God was going to restore Israel to its former glory, and that God was not finished with Israel. Even if Israel had been defeated, the bones, the skin had been taken away from their body, and the muscles had been separated, and they were not just dry bones, they were exceedingly dry bones. And yet God looked at them and said, I know it doesn't look like anything can happen in your life, and it doesn't look like I can use you, but I am going to use you anyway. And we serve a God who does not look at us the way we see ourselves. God looks at us for who we can be. I want to remind you, where you are right now in your life is not where you're going. I know there's frustrations, and I know there's tension, and I know there's pain, but there's more to your life than where you are right now. God has more for you. So don't define yourself for where you are right now. Don't define yourself by your pain, your lack, your frustration, your fears, and all the things that seem to be closing in on you, because where you are right now is not where you're going. Tomorrow, you could be somewhere else. And you have to make up in your mind, I'm going somewhere. I don't care what this looks like. There's more in me than where I am right now. There could be a king or a queen in you in a one-bedroom apartment with a bus pass. And you have to know in yourself that there is more to my life, that God has more for me than where I am. And my problem is that sometimes we get so enamored with the destination about where we're supposed to be that we can't enjoy where we are. The truth is, you will spend more time on your way to the destination than you actually have going to be at the destination. I have driven an hour to a party that I only stayed at 15 minutes. The destination was longer. The journey was longer than I stayed at the destination. And so at some point in your life, you have to make up in your life, that in your mind, that where I am is not where I'm going. So I'm going to enjoy the journey. I am going to enjoy where I am right now. I am not going to define myself where I am right now, because I know I'm not going to stay here. I went to I was going somewhere, and I went to this hotel, and my room wasn't ready, and they gave me a temporary room that I could, lay down and wash up, do whatever I needed to do. I did not unpack my bags. I did not unpack my bags, even though I was in the room. What I knew was, this is not my room. This ain't my room, so ain't no sense in me getting comfortable here. And there's no sense in me unpacking, and when they call, I need to be ready to move. So there's another room for you, basically, is what I'm telling you right now. So don't unpack your whole life and start camping out in some place that's temporary, because God has more for you. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If there were not, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place. There is a prepared place for the people of God. There is a prepared place for you. God has something for you. Say, God has something for me. You may not have it right now, and that is okay. As long as you know that God has more for me, and as the saints used to say, I'm just a pilgrim traveling through this old barren land. It may not have everything that I wanted to have, but that's okay, because I'm not staying here no way. I am on the move. You are on the move. Say, I am on the move.
I'm on the move.
Sometimes when you're on the move, you have the power to walk ahead yourself. And sometimes God has to push you. And then sometimes God has to drag you. But you are still on the move. Whether you are walking on your own and say, God, I can handle this and I'm good, or God is moving you and you're not ready to go. And so he's dragging you. Or you can say, I would rather go back to where things have always been, and I want things to stay the same. God will push you. But here's what I know, God will move you. And what I want to do is be the kind of person that God can move. Wherever it is I need to go, wherever it is I need to be, I don't want to fall in love with where I am. I want to be able to move, because I have to trust the fact that if God is moving me, he knows where I'm supposed to be when I don't know where I'm supposed to be. And so I don't want to kick and fight against God all the time. I want a heart that says to say, God, if God says to me that it's time to go, I want to be able to pack my bags and move. So you're on your way somewhere. Where you are is not where you're going. Don't define yourself by something that is temporary. Don't define yourself by temporary pain, temporary discomfort, a temporary job, a temporary person. Don't define yourself all, because all those things will change. And if you're going to live and die by somebody coming in and out of your life, you're going to be living and dying a whole lot of time. You need to be able to steady yourself. Steady your mind and let people go and let people come and let people do, and understand that love is not control. Love is not possession. That's what Michael said. See, let me tell you something. He said something. Let me tell you. He did. He did. When you understand mature love, love is not about controlling anybody. Love means that I give you the freedom to hurt me. I trust that you won't. But I make myself vulnerable enough, because love demands that I take down my walls and my defenses. Which means that the object that I love has the power to hurt me. What I want to trust, and with myself, the Holy Ghost, and everything I need, is to discern whether or not the person that I love has the capacity to hurt me. But even if they don't hurt you, always know they have the capacity to hurt you. Because wherever there's love, there's pain. And love isn't always about making you feel good. Love has many properties in it. And I want us to talk about, just for a few minutes, God as lover. What we understand in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, we're going to have to examine what it means for God to be a lover. How does God love? So the Bible says that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. I've been telling you for 3 weeks that love breathes through giving. Love has life through giving. You can't say that you love something or anybody. You can't say you love your church and you never give to your church. You can't say that you love your wife and you never give to your wife or your companion or husband or kids, because love causes you to give. There is a cost to love. Love ain't free. Love is not free. And I've done weddings. I've done a lot of weddings in my life. And the wonderful thing about a wedding is I go to the wedding and I go home. I go to sleep. I've seen people spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for like 15 minutes. All the wedding ceremony is about 15, 20 minutes. And I've seen the brides fall out with bridesmaids and everybody's angry and upset and talking about caterers and decorators. Go spend 2 years planning 15 minutes for a ceremony. I do the wedding. I don't go to wedding rehearsals, because I know what I'm doing. I know where to stand, what to say, what to show up. This is y'all's event. And I've seen them come down in beautiful gowns and all the pageantry, and it should be there, because love is to be celebrated. And I've seen the price tag on the wedding, and I go home and I go to sleep. Because here's what I know, what these two people don't know. You're going to be paying for this wedding for the rest of your life. The cheapest thing about a marriage is the wedding. Love is going to be paid out over the course of a lifetime. And it will be way more expensive than your dress. It's going to be way more expensive than the caterers. Because love costs. And love is convenient for all of us until it costs us something we don't want to give. For God so loved the world that he gave his only. Now we got to define only. What is only? I've never met anybody who had an extra only. My only one. Love asked me for my only. And God gave it because God is a lover. When he deals with Israel in Ezekiel chapter 16, he does something that I think we need to pay attention to. And when I read Ezekiel chapter 16, about verse 4, I thought about 2 Peter chapter 3, 4, somewhere in there, when Peter is talking about husbands loving their wives. And this is what he says. He says, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. That is important. Dwell with them according to knowledge. He says to the husbands, you can't live in harmony with somebody you don't know. And if you're going to dwell with them, you better know her. She is your homework. You've got to study her. You've got to study her fears, her insecurities. You need to know where she comes from, what kind of childhood she had, what is her level of education. You cannot love somebody you don't know. And you've got to pay attention to the details, because usually it is the details that's going to trip you up. And Solomon, he says that it is the small foxes that spoil the vine. It is the little things that eat away at a relationship that causes it to crumble. And he says, husbands, if you're going to have success, you better ask some questions. You better treat her like she's your homework. You better dwell with her, not according to what you read in some book. You need to know the woman that is living in your house. Dwell with them according to knowledge. And when God begins to talk about Israel in chapter 16, it amazes me how well he knows Israel. When he talks about Israel, he is talking to a fully grown nation. But when he talks to Israel, he starts the conversation saying, I know where you come from. Your mother was a Hittite. Your father was an Amorite. I know you. Let me talk about what happened in the day of your nativity. In the day you were born, there were some things that happened that set a pattern for you later on in life. Never think that when you meet someone, their behavior, even though it is the first time you are experiencing it, they've been rehearsing this behavior for years. What we do in our adulthood, usually the pattern was set in our childhood. So if they acted out in their childhood and never was disciplined, they get grown and act up in their adulthood. I look at celebrities sometimes acting out and acting crazy. I was like, oh, this ain't the first time you done acted out. You've been crazy a long time. You just have more of an audience and an opportunity to act crazy in public. But somewhere along the lines, somebody told you was wonderful and did not discipline you. And so you get up to be an adult and you aren't disciplined. That is why young people get jobs and they quit it because the boss wasn't nice. Or the teacher didn't talk to me the way I wanted the teacher to talk to me, so I can't stay in the class. It is because somebody spoiled you and did not give you the tough love that you needed in order to understand how you need to be able to anchor yourself in maturity if you are going to be successful. Everybody's not going to like you. Right. Let me say this. I think I'm delightful.
Well, yeah.
In general, I think I am a wonderful person.
Amen.
But could you imagine the reality of the fact that there are some people who don't like me? Number one, I'm okay with that. Because number two, I'm not for everybody.
Right.
And you ain't for everybody either.
Right.
I love strawberry cheesecake.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who hate strawberry cheesecake.
Yeah.
Cheesecake ain't for everybody.
Right.
So I'm okay with I'm cheesecake. And I am not from everybody. That doesn't mean I'm bad. Cheesecake to me is delightful. But delight is subjective. Just depends on what you like, if you think it's delightful. I don't know why I said that. I was talking about something. I think I'm loved, and I think I'm wonderful. Kids, yes. Somebody's not going to like you. If you can't deal with people who are adversarial to you, you're going to quit every job, walk out of every class, leave every relationship you in, if you don't learn how to deal with rejection.
That's true.
But Jesus, when he was telling his disciples to go spread the gospel, he says you're going to go into some homes and they're not going to receive you. He didn't say stand there and cry and try to beg people to like you. You know what he said? Shake the dust from your feet and keep on walking.
Right.
Because even though I'm sending you with a good message, everybody's not going to want to hear what you have to say. And you can't live and die. You can't stop preaching the gospel because somebody don't want to hear you. No, if you don't receive me, there's somebody who wants to receive you. Shake the dust from your feet and keep on walking. Look at somebody and say, keep on walking. You're going to have people in your life who love you and hate you. Just keep on walking. Whether they saying Hosanna one day or crucify him the next, just keep on walking. Because your movement is not dependent upon somebody's opinion about you. You have to have your own opinion about you, set your own worth, and if people can't match that, keep on walking. If they do match it, just keep on walking. Because the greatest treasure you will ever have is you. And I've had people leave, come, go, die on me, move way across the world. Here is the greatest gift God ever gave me, was me. I'm still here. Look at somebody say, I'm still here. If I'm still here, it means God has a plan for me. Because God is not a junk collector. And he did not allow my pain, my rejection, whatever I was going through to overthrow me and take me out. I am still here, which means that I am still valuable to God. When God begins to talk to Israel, he says, I know who your parents were. I know the environment you came up into. As for the day of thy nativity, your mother was an Amorite, your father was a Hittite, and let's talk through what happened to you. He begins to talk to about what happened to them by talking about what did not happen for them. And sometimes as we are adults, we don't realize sometimes the deficit we have to live with. It is not that we didn't get something, but sometimes the things that we needed, we didn't get enough of it. He says, in the day that I was born, thy navel was not cut. In the day that I was born, thy navel was not cut. We know the process of birth is one thing that happens when babies are born. The umbilical cord needs to be cut. If the baby is going to live outside of the womb, he's going to have to learn how to eat differently from the way the baby ate before. When the baby was in the womb, whatever the mother ate, that's what the child ate. When the baby is born, the umbilical cord is cut. Yes. And he is talking to an adult nation and say, your problem was your navel wasn't cut. You're still being fed by something that should have stopped feeding you a long time ago. You too grown. You too adult to still. And let me put a Paul pin right here, because as we were on our fast, I started studying nutrition. And I started listening to some things and then reading my Bible at the same time. And I came across this doctor that said the biggest enemy to adults is milk. One of the biggest enemies to adults is milk. He says that milk is full of fat proteins. And you give babies milk because they need the proteins in order to grow fatter, to get stronger, what they need. Then he says that as we get older, we become addicted to dairy. And it still keeps making us fat, even as an adult. Then I thought about the scripture in Hebrews chapter 6 that says, when you are born, you are babes, you desire the sincere milk of the word. Yeah. That is important for us to understand as Christians, because when we are babies, there are some things that we need to digest. Paul begins to say, or Apollos begins to say, when you become adult and mature, you must put away milk from you. You must have meat. And you need that to feed you. And the problem is what he is saying here is that you're still on milk when you should be on meat. Right. You are not mature. You're still being fed about baby things. You still, the nutrients that you got as a baby, you're still feeding off that in your adulthood. And it doesn't make you better, it just makes you bigger. Your navel was not cut. You're still being fed by things that are over. Let me put a pin right here. Because sometimes in our memories, we're still being fed by something that happened in our childhood that we can't get over. Words that were spoken to us. Things, some ugly girl or some ugly boy said something to you when you were in 3rd grade, and now you carry it in your life and you think that is who you are. You're still being fed by things that you should be over by now. I am not telling you to get over it. What I want you to do is to recognize that in some ways this has shaped you in a way that is not healthy for you. Your navel was not cut. Yeah. If I was thinking, I would have brought a pair of scissors for everybody. And I would want you to take it home and take it to your mirror. And always remind yourself to keep cutting those things away from you. Because that is what you do as an adult. But here, he says, you were a baby. You couldn't cut your own cord. But nobody did it for you. The basic things that you needed, and you should have got it. Somebody, I've never seen a baby come out of the womb and cut their own cord. This should have been done for you. And since nobody did it for you, there's this long trail between then and now. I got friends who still live in their mother's house. Because the cord only goes so far. The cord runs from his mother's bedroom all the way up to the attic. They never cut the cord in order to grow up and be an adult. And being an adult, what I learned is not all it's cracked up to be. Yeah, amen. Highly overrated experience. You stumble learning how to be an adult. I lived in my first apartment. After, my story is I lived with my parents. I went to college, lived in a dorm, came back home, lived with my parents, got married, lived with my wife, my ex-wife, and then got divorced, and now I'm on my own. For the first time in my life, I was on my own, and it took me 27 years, 27, 28 years to get my own apartment, buy my own car, have my own light bill. So number one, I want pots and pans. So number one, I want you to be patient because it takes us a minute to get it together. But you get it together. And I remember my first apartment. I lived without a refrigerator for like 3 years. A refrigerator and a stove. I didn't think I needed it. I was eating out every day. I had my little mini refrigerator. It had a little freezer thing in it that I could keep my ice cream and keep drinks cold. I did not have a bed. I had a sleeping bag. No, I had blankets and a pillow that I brought from my mother's house. Starting out being an adult, you don't have everything that you will have. Now, some 15 years later, I got a couch. I had a bed with a headboard. I got towels. I got pots and pans. Lights, gas. Candles in the window. I got bookshelves and everything. Maturity happens over the course of time.
Yes.
You got to start somewhere. And the problem is people want to start and have everything at the beginning. You don't have everything at the beginning. Being an adult is about prioritizing and struggling. And I realized that if I was going to keep the lights on, I can't buy everything that I want. You have to be able to make priorities in your life. And I remember laying on the floor with a little pallet there, and I had a TV. I brought the TV. They let me take the TV from the house. And I remember my first night in my own place. It was scary to be on my own. But you want to know what I had? Peace.
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh, I could do this. You can't buy peace. You can't go to the store and buy you a bundle of peace. Either you have it or you don't. And if you don't take the steps to step out on faith, not knowing if you're going to sink or swim, not knowing that parents should not be a life source for adults. They should be a safety net. Just in case I fall off a cliff, there's somebody there that will help me. They should not, at some point, be the sustainer of your whole life.
Right.
Because you're supposed to be grown. And there's a struggle to be grown. And what God is telling Israel, this is what I know about you. Your neighbor was not cut. Here, neither was thou washed in water to cleanse thee. Thou was not salted at all, nor swallowed. Now, all of these things should be done for babies. He says, I know this about you. Your neighbor was not cut. You were not washed. When a baby is born expelled from the womb, there's amniotic fluid that the baby is covered in. The baby looks like what it has been through.
Right.
At some point, you should be washed. No, Paul says that you are cleansed by the washing of the water of the word. That at some point when you are born again, as a babe, these things should be done for you. Even though you're on milk, somebody should wash you and cleanse you so you don't look like what you've been through.
Yes.
It is not just enough not to look like what you have been through, because that is one issue. But here is what I want us to understand, is that some of us still look like or carry with us what we have been through. And when God comes to love us, he has to love us through all of these things. Your neighbor was not cut. You weren't washed. You weren't salted. When in ancient times, when babies was born, especially being in the desert, there was a lot of sun. And so I want us to reject all of these images we see that coming out of Egypt, that we see white, blonde, blue-eyed people coming out of Africa and Egypt.
Right.
Some of these people, I say to myself, you couldn't even get them a tan. You know Jesus was black, right?
That's right.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
He was not blonde and blue-eyed. He didn't look like, he just didn't look European. That's not what you can't be.
That's right.
I look like my parents. And if my parents was black, you know what I'm going to be?
Black.
I'm going to be black. That's important for us to understand, because in the desert, in the heat of the desert, what they had to do for babies was when they were born, their skin is sensitive. They would salt the baby. I think what we call it now is exfoliation. And you remove the dead skin. If you've ever had an exfoliator, it is granular. It is grainy. What it is meant to do is to massage the skin, to lift dead skin, and to actually, they have moisturizers and exfoliators now, so it can do both. It can lift the dead skin and actually moisturize at the same time. And what he is saying to them is nobody bothered to salt you when you were a baby. And that is why you grow up to be adults and you're too sensitive.
Wow.
way too sensitive for people to love you right. Because if I love you, that means sometimes I have to give you tough love. And I have to say something to you that is the truth, and you have to hear it as though I'm not attacking you. Because I love you. It may not be anything you want to hear, but it is the truth. And sometimes you got to tell the truth, whether you like it or not. And when you have people around you who tiptoe around you and they can't tell you the truth because you're too sensitive, it ain't them, it's you. And I am telling you my testimony because I have had people, and some of the people go to this church, say some things to me. And if I was going to be sensitive, I wasn't going to make it. I can't make everything about me. It could be just an issue. And even though it's difficult for me to hear, if it's the truth, I want it. Now, can somebody do that to you? Can somebody tell you the truth and you get your feelings hurt and you not take it personal? Because the truth is not always convenient. And when I love you, I'm not always going to be polite to you when I tell you the truth because I love you. And you need people in your life who love you enough to stand up to your tears and your tantrums and tell you, yes, this is the truth, deal with it. And when somebody loves you, they'll even help you deal with it. But we're going to tell the truth right now. Here's what I want. God desires truth in the inward parts. And the hidden parts, he will make me to know wisdom. There can be no wisdom in your life if you have not dealt with the truth. And sometimes the truth is you made a horrible mistake. And I am the kind of person, I am a I told you so kind of person. Because I told you. I did tell you. Because if I love you, I want you to make decisions fully armed with information that you need. So let me tell you my perspective. Now, whatever decision you make, you're going to make it. I'm going to support you. And when it all goes bad, we're going to work it out. But the first thing going to be out of my mouth, I told you. Now, we can pick up the pieces and we go from here. But if you were to just listen to the truth, and here it is. Sometimes the truth doesn't always come from people you want to hear it from. Don't always dismiss your critics and people who don't like you. Because in some ways, they show you a mirror of yourself. And if every time somebody says something to you, you dismiss it, you never grow. You can never grow up if you don't deal with the truth. And the problem, what God is saying is you're too sensitive. That's why you can't keep relationships in your life. That's why you always falling out with your best friend every other week. Because whenever times truth gets too close to you, you don't want to deal with it. You never mature if you deny the truth. I know people who have made lifelong decisions based off a lie they told themselves about somebody or about a situation. And then truth doesn't hit you till you get on the back end. I had this experience where when I was in college, you know, they throw credit cards at young people. And you don't understand credit. You don't understand interest rates. You don't understand anything like that. And so I was talking to my grandmother about it. And, you know, she said, don't get those credit cards. Wait till you come home and we'll let me help you do it. I was like, I'm grown, I'm on my own. You know, I'm going to do this. They said it to me. And I remember going to the post office, and it came, and I didn't know what it was. I just opened it, and a credit card fell out. Oh, my God. Credit. First thing I did, go get them new Jordans. And a pizza that night. That's what it was. That's what I did. Just what I was. And I did not know because of the interest rate. By the time I paid off the credit card, and it had damaged my credit, the interest rate on the credit card was like 21%. I had paid like 4 times. Think about paying $5 for something, and it cost you $25 to pay off the $5. And it was because I didn't want to listen to her. I figured it out. Because we all, when we're young, we all think we know, right? Like, you don't realize your parents and people who are older than you have actually been through this before. And you don't want to hear what they got to say because you know what you know and you can handle it. And there's only on the back end. When you get bill collectors calling your house, and then you give them your parents' telephone number so they'll stop calling your phone. Now you realize that if I would have just listened to somebody when they told me no, don't do that. And understand that if somebody's telling you no, they're not trying to ruin your life. They're not trying to stop you from having fun, stop you from being an adult. They are just trying to help you fix the mistakes that we made in our own lives. But if you're going to dismiss me every time I try to tell you the truth, you know what I'm going to stop doing? I'm going to stop telling you the truth. And then on the back end, my first thing going to be out of my mouth is, I told you something. You weren't salted. So you grew up and you're too sensitive. There's a candidate for high office in Illinois, and he's had some problems this past couple of weeks. And whatever my opinion about it is, one of the things you have to do is be in a room with people who are angry at you and let them be angry. Let them get it all out. Let them tell you the truth. Maybe let them lie on you a little bit. There's a bigger picture here. And so don't be dismissive when somebody tries to tell you the truth because they're trying to help you. And they're trying to mature you. You weren't salted at all. Number 5, what time is it? Okay. All right. None I pity thee to do any of these things, to have compassion upon thee, but thou wast cast out in the open field to the loathing of thy person in the day that thou was born. I know this isn't exciting, but I'm a pastor and this is what I do, so I want you to hear me. None of these things were done unto thee. What he is describing is neglect. I used to think neglect wasn't as bad as abuse, but I do see neglect as a form of abuse. Because this baby could not do any of these things on their own. The baby is dependent on somebody being mature enough to do these things for me. But what God says to Israel, nobody did any of these things for you and did not even feel sorry for you. None I pity thee, to have compassion about thee. They threw you out. And this is for all the people that had to grow up too fast. The kids that in some way you had to raise yourself. Because mama worked, daddy worked, a lot of kids around the house. And in some ways you had to figure it out on your own. My grandmother used to tell me the story about my grandfather. My grandfather was born in West Point, Mississippi. And it was like, 14 of them? And she says that when she started talking to his parents, she says that my grandfather was a quiet guy, really kind of passive. All the other kids were more aggressive. And so when they ate in West Point, Mississippi, they ate kind of family style. Family style in restaurants, as they get that from black people, is that you cook all of the food and then it is put on platters and put on the table, and then 1, 2, 3, go. Everybody grabs, gets what they need, and that's how they are fed. The mother doesn't go around fixing plates because there's just too many of y'all. So just put it on the table and everybody gets what they want. She says that my grandfather was the kind of person that if my great-grandmother did not put food up for him, he wouldn't eat. Because while everybody was grabbing for what they needed, he was at the table being quiet, waiting for somebody to feed him. And sometimes we live around people who are always grabbing for what they need. And we haven't learned how to feed ourselves. And if you don't learn how to feed yourself, you will starve. Because it is not guaranteed somebody's going to be compassionate enough to put food up for you. Right. Says basically to Israel, nobody pitied thee to feed thee to have compassion on me, and they left you out in the field to the loathing of that person. Now, here is where we start getting involved in our own neglect. Because we think because somebody did not do these things for us, we may not be worth anybody ever in life doing it for us. So we enter relationships to give, thinking that if I give enough, if I'm good enough, if I give everything I'm supposed to give, in response, they'll love me the way I need to be loved. That if I feed you, you'll feed me back. And you're basically my grandfather waiting for somebody to fix you a plate. When you are an adult, you have to learn how to feed yourself. Now I'm talking about self-love. When you don't feed yourself, maybe telling that you don't really love yourself. So then you bring somebody in your life who loves you like you love you, but you don't love you. So they treat you how you treat yourself.
Right.
So the first thing you have to do is learn how to love you. Look at somebody and say, I love me.
I love me.
I want you to say it till you believe it.
Right.
And then you start acting on it.
Yeah.
And stop thinking that when you put yourself first, it means that you're selfish.
Right. Yeah.
Or you're self-centered.
Yeah.
Or you're stingy. Because if you don't feed yourself, you can't feed anybody else.
Right.
And you teach people how to treat you the way you treat yourself.
Yeah.
So if you buy yourself cheap stuff, they see that,
Right.
and they buy you cheap stuff. Because they figure it does not matter.
Right.
You matter. Don't wait on anybody to love you right. You love yourself right.
Yes.
Take yourself out to eat.
Yes.
Book you a vacation for yourself. Go to the spa. I don't care if nobody ever does it. If you like cards, buy yourself a birthday card. Don't wait on somebody to buy you a cake. Buy your own cake. Just take a day off.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Stay in the bed, sleep late, whatever it is you need to do periodically to remind yourself that you matter. Because here's what I want you to understand. People will use you
Yeah.
till you gone.
Right. That's right, Pastor.
I learned this about my father. My father we'd have arguments. He was in the hospital and hooked up the machines and said, I need to go play for so-and-so. You listen to this. I need to go pay for so. I promised so-and-so I'll be at their program. And I said, I'm going to have you committed to the crazy house. Because this is what crazy people do. How are you going to be sick trying to help somebody else?
Right. Yeah.
And he was the kind of person, like a lot of men in his generation, they do what they do till the wheels fall off. And literally the wheels fell off. And you want to know what they did the next Sunday? They had church and found him another organist. So that means that people going to do what they want to do. They'll use you till you're not here no more, and they'll find somebody else to use. So if that is the case, make sure that you enjoy this journey. Loving yourself means telling somebody no and walking away. I ain't finna explain it. I ain't going through no change with you. I don't care about your hurt feelings. I said no. Because if you don't take care of yourself, don't expect anybody else to take care of you. Wipe your own tears. Don't wait for nobody to come bring you a tissue. Come to church with your own tissue, your own napkin. Wipe your own tears. Feed yourself. Don't wait for somebody to be concerned about you. You be concerned about you. He says that you were left out in the open field. You were vulnerable. Everybody was looking at you and looking at how neglected you were. And you were left to the loathing of your own person. Now you become insecure. Because the question is, if I was valuable, how come they didn't do these things? If I was so valuable, how come they didn't pay enough attention to me? If I was pretty, how come nobody ever said it? If I was handsome, how come nobody ever told me I was handsome? So maybe I'm not any of these things. Maybe I'm not worth anything. Maybe I'm not pretty, maybe I'm not smart, maybe I'm not handsome. And because you got that in your childhood, you became an adult who manifested all of these behaviors. And no matter who comes in your life to try to love you, you bark them away because you don't trust them. So you become mean and ornery, and don't nobody want to talk to you, be bothered with you, or you become needy. You are absolutely exhausting. You are draining. And that's nice. It may be cute for a minute, but ain't nobody come to in your life to be your nurse. They hire people for this. Ain't that right, Nash? You work at the hospital. People get paid to be somebody's nurse. He's the chaplain. They pay him money just to be concerned. He don't even know these people. But this is his job. They hire people for him to go in there and act like he cares. I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying you don't. I am saying in general, that is the occupation. You go in to care for people you don't even know. So if you need a chaplain, somebody to get paid to care about you and all of your sicknesses and all of your insecurities, there are people who have done that. Nobody wants to come in your life for free. To be your medic, your chaplain, your caretaker, because then you become heavy.
Yeah.
Then you're not enjoyable. Then I don't know why I'm doing this. Because the stress you have in your life, now you are bringing that stress into my life. And the only way I could love you is to not talk to you. It's tight, but it's right.
Yeah.
It's tight. I am telling the absolute truth.
Yeah.
Some of us carry sadness with us. And every time we get into a relationship and somebody tries to love us, we bring that sadness with us. It's in your eyes. It's in your demeanor. You can't look people in the face and talk to them. You can't hold lengthy conversations. Somebody compliments you. You're always tearing yourself down. Nobody come here. Nobody come here for all of that. Look at somebody and say, ain't nobody come here for all of that.
Ain't nobody come here for all of that.
So pull yourself up.
Yes, sir.
You got to learn how to talk to yourself.
Right.
You got to learn to say to yourself all the things you wish somebody else would say to you. I was listening the other day, a documentary on Muhammad Ali, and you know, Muhammad Ali's, I'm the greatest, I'm the most beautiful. He didn't believe any of those things about himself till he started talking himself into it. And by the time he starts talking about, I'm beautiful, I'm wonderful, I'm the greatest, he became what he said he was. So if you don't start talking to yourself, don't wait for other voices to start talking to you right, because they will not do it. Because they don't know you.
Help us, Pastor.
Well, God is telling Israel, I know you. I know where you've been. I know what you got. I know what you did not get. So let me read you this. You were left out in an open field to the loathing of that person. And when I found you, I wasn't even studying you. Because he says, I passed by you. And I saw thee polluted in thine own blood. Things that should have been washed away from you. You swim in it. You're drowning in it. And you didn't even know. He says, when I found you, I did not take you out of the situation. I spoke to you. Live.
Come on.
Because you're not going to be able to get out of it till you wake up.
Right.
Everybody want to talk about being woke? Let's talk about being woke. You've got to say to yourself, I am going to live through this till it changes. I may be hurting. I'm going to live. I may not have a job. I'm going to live. Because where I am is not where I'm going. So what I need God to do is to speak life to me. So I can be woke enough to realize I am too old to be going through these changes. I'm too old to spend years talking about what happened when I was 12 years old. It does not matter. And everything that's holding you back, you need to live and pass and let yourself go. Cut the umbilical cord and put a gulf between that was then and this is now. Stand to your feet. I ain't even finished. I ain't even finished. Well, I'll be back next week.
Yeah.
It's time for you to live. Look at somebody say it's time for you to live.
Time to live.
I'm not talking about just waking up every morning.
Yeah.
I'm talking about living. I'm talking about being happy.
Yes.
I'm talking about getting to the destination. There's more to your whole life than where you are right now. There's more love for you. There's more care for you. There's more success for you. There's more money for you. Everything God has for you is getting ready to happen, but you got to wake up. And when I passed by thee, I spoke to you. I said, live. Bow your heads. God, thank you
Yes, Father.
that you love us enough
Yes.
to love us when it is uncomfortable, when we are uncomfortable.
Yes.
That you create tension in us to wake us up.
Yes.
Thank you that you know us. You said, I know the plans that I have for you.
Yes, Lord.
So thank you that you know the plan and you know that where we are is just a step.
Yes.
Help us to keep moving,
Yes.
keep striving,
Yes.
keep reaching,
Yes.
keep knowing that you're able to do exceeding and abundantly above all we can ever ask or think.
Yes.
We trust you.
Yes.
We love you with all of our hearts.
Yes.
We love you with all of our souls.
Yes.
In Jesus' name, amen. Hug somebody and tell them to live.